I'll never forget the morning I stepped out on my porch, coffee in hand, thinking it was going to be another quiet day. The sun was just starting to rise over the hills. The air was crisp, and for a moment, everything felt right. Then I saw a shine of a brand new fence stretching clear across the road that had always led out to the county highway. At the center of it was a heavy steel gate, locked tight with a padlock I didn't own. And right there, nailed to the post, was a polished little sign that read, "Access managed by Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association." I set my mug down and just stood there, frozen. My cattle were grazing inside the property, pinned in like they were exhibits in some zoo, and I realized in that instant I was trapped on my own land. 6 weeks earlier, I'd packed up my life in Dallas and moved out here to finally live the dream I'd been saving for. My name's Daniel Carter. I'm 47, spent most of my adult years hauling freight and patching together odd jobs, just trying to scrape enough to buy my own spread. I'd imagine mornings like this one, the sound of cows lowing against the wind, my boots in the dirt, no bosses breathing down my neck. What I hadn't counted on was a homeowners association standing between me and my own damn road. By the time I walked down to the gate, 2 guys in HOA polo shirts were tightening bolts like they were building Fort Knox. I tried to keep my tone level. "Morning, fellas. Care to explain what this is?" One kept his eyes on the wrench. The other muttered, "Talk to the board." And that's when she pulled up. Sleek black SUV, spotless as a showroom floor. Out stepped the HOA president, Veronica Steele. Crisp suit, heels clicking on the gravel, clipboard tucked under her arm like it was a badge of office. She didn't bother with small talk. "Mr. Carter, you've been notified of your non-compliance issues." I frowned. Non-compliance with what? Her smile was thin, all teeth and no warmth. "Perimeter fencing must match community standards. Yours does not. Until it's corrected, this measure will prevent further violations." She said this measure like it was nothing, but I was staring at a locked gate between my cattle and their water source. I told her plain, "That's my access road. My herd drinks from the creek down there. And by the way, that's not even your land." She didn't flinch. "The easement is controlled by the HOA. It's in the covenant you signed when you purchased." Then she turned on her heel, heels sharp against the gravel, climbed back in her SUV, and left me standing there with a padlock in my face. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my neighbor, Pete Ramirez, a retired trucker who'd been in the valley 20 years. He leaned back with his coffee and shook his head. "Veronica's got the board wrapped around her finger. If she doesn't like you, she'll bury you in rules until you break." I said, "I didn't bust my back for 3 decades just to get pushed around by a committee in khakis." Pete's eyes narrowed. "Then you better be ready. She won't give you that key unless you play her game." So I started documenting everything, every letter, every conversation, every photograph of that fence. When I walked into my first HOA meeting, the room smelled of burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. The board sat in a row like a firing squad. Veronica sat at the center in a navy blazer, staring me down before I even said a word. They rattled off landscaping complaints, mailbox paint disputes, then called my name. I walked to the front, boots echoing in the silence. "Your fence doesn't meet specifications," she announced, calm as a surgeon. I set my folder on the table and opened it. "This is a working ranch, not a golf course. My fence keeps cattle in, keeps coyotes out. It's functional." One board member leaned forward, smug. "Rules are rules. No exceptions." I pointed at the packet. "Then why did I pass 3 houses on the way here with mismatched fences and no padlocks?" A murmur rippled through the room. Veronica's lips twitched. "Those cases are under review. You remain out of compliance. Fines will continue until you correct the issue." I leaned closer. "You're blocking access to my water source. That's not just about rules, it's about the survival of living animals." She didn't even blink. "Satellite imagery shows you have other water points." I laughed bitterly. "Satellite imagery? You think you can ranch from a photograph?" The room stirred, neighbors shifting uncomfortably. She never broke eye contact. "The HOA will take legal action if necessary." And with that, the gavel came down and my wallet started bleeding $50 a day, then 100. Weeks passed, and every day my mailbox filled with fresh threats, each letter more aggressive than the last. Visual inconsistency detrimental to community appeal. I read the words out loud one evening, shaking my head. "I'm raising cattle, not hosting weddings." Pete chuckled grimly. They know exactly what they're doing, wear you down until you fold or bleed you dry. But I wasn't folding. Not after what came next. One morning, I spotted a for sale sign on a tiny half-acre parcel, the exact strip of land with the locked gate. My heart kicked up. If I owned that lot, I'd own the gate. And if I owned the gate, the lock would be mine. I drove straight into town and sat down with a local attorney, Alan Rhodes. His office smelled like old paper and stronger coffee. I spread out the letters, the photos, the whole mess. If I buy that lot, does it give me control? Alan scanned the documents, adjusted his glasses. Bad news is, they're within the covenants you signed. Good news is, if that parcel's separate and you buy it, yes, you control it outright. But you'll need to move quietly. If Veronica finds out, she'll crush the sale before you close. I nodded. Then she can't know it's me. I called an old buddy from college, Jack Turner, who ran a property management company 2 counties over. He set up an LLC under his firm's umbrella. My name never touched the paperwork. Within days, we had an offer in. But word travels fast in a small town. And sure enough, Veronica started circling the fence with board members like vultures. Paula Simmons, a neighbor I barely knew, pulled me aside at the grocery store. The board's sniffing around that lot, talking to a surveyor. Watch your back. I played it cool, thanked her, but that night I told Jack, we move faster. By Friday, escrow was open, deposit down, deal locked unless I backed out, and backing out wasn't in the cards. 3 weeks later, I walked into the title office dressed like any other day, dusty jeans, worn boots, plain shirt. Jack signed on behalf of the LLC, slid the papers across, and just like that, the keys were pushed into my hand. Heavy silver, smooth in my palm. Leverage made metal. Back at the ranch, I walked down to the lot, slid the key into that padlock, and turned. The shackle popped open with a sound that felt final, like a door closing behind me. I swung the gate wide and let my cattle wander to the creek. For the first time in months, I felt free. That sense of freedom lasted 2 days. On the third, Veronica pulled up in her SUV, heels sharp against the gravel, 2 board members flanking her like bodyguards. Mr. Carter, she said coolly, you appear to have accessed HOA property without authorization. I leaned against the gate. This isn't HOA property anymore. I own this lot. County records will back me up. Her eyes narrowed. Impossible. The association had first right of refusal. I shrugged. Maybe so, but they didn't use it. Seller took my offer. This gate is mine. One board member shifted nervously. Veronica snapped. We'll challenge it. I didn't flinch. Challenge whatever you want. Until then, you don't control this gate. I do. She spun on her heel, climbed back into her SUV, and drove off, fury radiating like heat. That night, my inbox lit up with demand letters. I forwarded them all to Alan, who replied, let them make the next move. The next move came fast. 2 sheriff's deputies rolled up with Veronica at their side, claiming a property dispute. I walked out with deed in hand, handed it to the deputy. He scanned it, nodded. Checks out. He owns it. Veronica's jaw tightened so hard I thought her teeth might crack. We'll take this to court. The deputy shrugged. That's your right, ma'am. But today, no law's being broken. Neighbors gathered, whispering, some congratulating me quietly, others glaring. The valley was dividing down the middle. Soon after, the local paper splashed it on the front page. Rancher battles, HOA over locked gate. Radio talk shows chewed on it for days. At the annual community barbecue, folks showed up wearing Little Pins. Pete had handed out that read Carter's right. I kept to the edges, plate in hand, but Veronica found me. You've made your point, she said, tight smile plastered on. But the HOA will continue to enforce rules. You'd be wise to consider the long-term consequences of this. Publicity. I looked her dead in the eye. You've been using fear to control folks for years. That ends now. A hush fell over the crowd nearby. She noticed the stares, softened her voice, tried to sound conciliatory. We can still work this out without dragging it through court. I shook my head. You had that chance months ago. You chose the lock instead. Her heels clicked away, sharp against the concrete, but everyone had heard. 2 days later, the lawsuit landed in my hands. Dense legal language about easements and covenants. But at its core, it was nothing more than a desperate grab. Alan flipped through the papers in his office and smirked. They've got nothing. Title's clean. They're hoping you'll cave. I told him flat out, I'm not settling. Court hearings drew crowds, neighbors curious, some supportive, some hostile. Veronica arrived every day in immaculate suits, eyes cold, allies at her side. She never acknowledged me once. During a break, Paula leaned in and whispered, "Win or lose, you've already changed things. People aren't so scared anymore." I nodded, but I wanted more than symbolic victory. I wanted a real one. And it came on a bright Tuesday morning. The judge ruled in my favor, the sale valid, the title clear, the HOA powerless over that gate lot. Better yet, they had to pay my legal fees. When the gavel struck, murmurs filled the courtroom. Pete gave me a subtle thumbs up. Paula smiled wide. Outside, reporters shoved microphones at me. I kept it simple. This was never about offense. It was about not letting someone take what's yours just because they think they can. I hope it shows others they can stand their ground too. Back at the ranch, I leaned on the gatepost, cattle grazing near the creek. Pete showed up with a couple of cold beers. "Feels good, doesn't it?" he said. I smiled. "It's more than good. It's proof that when you stop letting someone else write the rules for your life, you start living on your own terms." The HOA still exists. Veronica still lurks. But the fear she built in this community cracked wide open, and that more than the gate, more than the legal fees, that was the real victory. So here's what I'll leave you with. We all have locked gates in our lives, some neighbor, some boss, some committee convinced they can control us. Don't assume you have to accept it. Push back. Ask questions. And if the fight's worth it, don't stop until you've got the key in your own hands. Now I want to hear from you. Was I right to push back the way I did? Or should I have bent the knee to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments, tell me how you see it, and share your own HOA nightmares if you've got them.